Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the California ISO Board of Governors General Session. Please note that all participant audio lines will be muted until the public comment portions of the webinar, and we will provide you with instructions on how to ask a question at that time. With that, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Chair Angelina Galateva. Angelina, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody, to our December 17, 2021 California ISO Board of Governors meeting. And for a roll call, I'll turn it over to Roger Collington, our Corporate Secretary.
Thank you, Angelina. Do the roll call now. Chair Galateva.
Present.
Vice Chair Bhagwat.
Present.
Governor Borenstein.
Present.
Governor Leslie.
Present.
And Governor Shorty.
Present.
Excellent. We are all present and accounted for. We have a quorum. We may proceed.
Thank you so much. Moving on to our next item. Is there any public comment on items not on the agenda at this time?
And ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon located at the bottom of your screen to enter the queue. You will hear a notification when your line is unmuted, and then please state your name and comment. All right, and I do not see any comments in the queue at this time.
Okay, moving on to the next item then. Decision on general session minutes. Corporate Secretary, Roger Collington.
Thank you, Chair Galateva. Governors, may I have a motion to approve the November 3rd, 2021 general session minutes?
So moved.
Second.
So that was so moved by Governor Borenstein and second by Governor Leslie. Governor Bhagwat, your vote, please.
Aye.
Governor Borenstein.
Aye.
Governor Galateva.
Aye.
Governor Leslie.
Aye.
Governor Shorty.
Aye.
Thank you, governors. The motion passes.
Thank you so much. And to our next item, the highly anticipated CEO report, our wonderful CEO, Elliot Mainzer.
Thank you very much, Chair Galateva, and to the governors. I really appreciate the opportunity today with this final CEO report of 2021. This month I took a little bit of a different take, a little bit of a look back on some of the key achievements of the ISO and our many partners, and a little in 2021, and a bit of a look forward to 2022, which is going to be a very exciting year. And as I said in the report, I think any retrospective of 2021 has to start with July 9th, where I think all of the preparation and planning coming out of August 2020 really bore fruit as we experienced. I think simultaneously all of the risk variables that I think are now at play in the West with respect to fires and resource adequacy issues. And I think with the duration of the interties into California and the loss of approximately 5,500 megawatts of generation, we literally pulled out all of the tools at our disposal to be able to successfully ride through that event and avoid rotating outages. And so I think we were able to successfully accomplish that for a variety of reasons. First of all, due to the additional generating capacity that was added during the year, especially battery storage resources, which performed extremely well. Additional actions that we took here at the ISO in terms of RMR agreements, capacity procurement mechanism, and extensions of the one-stop cooling requirements. Also, I think just essential this year was improved communication and coordination with the California regulatory agencies and adjacent utilities. I think we've really improved the lines of communication with the PUC and the CEC. And of course, all of the other Western utilities are deeply woven with us into the Western Interconnection. I think that coordination really bore fruit this summer. We did have good access to both traditional and emergency demand response resources. And of course, I really believe the skill and dedication of our control center operators played a really important role. So at the end of the day, we were able to work through this summer without any rotating outages, but it also validated and I think emphasized the importance of the work that's underway in partnership with state regulatory agencies to restore and then maintain a healthy reserve margin for California to bring additional clean capacity resources onto the system and to leverage technologies on both the supply side and the demand side of the equation here in the months and years ahead. The second major area, of course, for us, a big priority deals with coordinated transmission planning, queuing, and procurement. And this past year, we worked very closely with the CEC and the CPUC and industry partners to reinvigorate long-term transmission planning and to take steps to better synchronize integrated resource planning, transmission queuing, and resource procurement processes. This is absolutely essential in our ability to achieve SB 100 goals reliably and cost effectively. And this February, we will be producing our first, what will be known as our 20-year outlook process, in which we took SB 100 resource portfolios and are now trying to characterize the long-term architecture of the ISO's high voltage system. This kind of roadmap and forward vision is absolutely essential as we try to evaluate onshore, offshore, and interregional transmission solutions and try to provide an overarching transmission planning roadmap to guide intermediate power and transmission planning, interconnection queuing, and procurement. We're very excited about this new process. I believe that the improved coordination with the CEC and the CPUC in 2021 has been extremely valuable. There is much fine-tuning and stakeholder engagement ahead, but we really look forward to building on this collaboration in 2022. I will also mention, of course, that we're administering a stakeholder process to explore foundational reforms to transmission queuing procedures, and we've also posted clear and transparent information about currently available transmission capacity to guide and inform resource procurement in the next few years as we face the retirements of OTC units and Diablo Canyon 2. So 2022 is going to be a very, very important year as we really focus on long-term transmission planning and the integration of the various processes that are informed by it. Turning next to energy storage, this year really was the advent of large-scale storage on the California grid. We're expecting to end the year with about 2,500 megawatts of storage, up from 250 megawatts in the summer of 2020. And I believe this is now the highest concentration of lithium-ion storage resources in the world, and really a testament to the years of policy support and procurement efforts by California state officials. In general, I really believe that the energy storage resources performed very well in meeting net peak. And this year, following the approval of our ESDR 4 initiative by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and then our October 28th Energy Storage Forum, we have now just released a straw proposal for our new energy storage enhancements initiative with comments that will be due in mid-January. And this is another big focus area for us here at the ISO, and through this and other efforts, we intend to continue to take steps to enable energy storage technologies to play an increasingly crucial role on the California grid and to evolve our market rules to support new storage technologies in the future. I want to return briefly to the area of improved communication and collaboration. It's so essential to everything we do, and improved communication coordination with our partners throughout California and across the West was a major focus of attention in 2021. For me personally, in my first year as the ISO CEO, it was just a wonderful opportunity to meet a wide variety of new colleagues, to get acquainted with some old friends, and to build and strengthen relationships. We initiated this year our Summer Readiness Roundtable in April, where we brought together leadership of utilities and other resource providers from across the West to make sure we are as prepared as we possibly could be going into summer 2021. There was a significant effort to improve the messaging around flex alerts for the demand response resources. We introduced a new Energy Matters blog, which we're now propagating out there, and allows us to talk about the key issues facing the ISO and our many partners across the West, and to leverage many of the voices inside the ISO. And in 2022, we'll be rolling out a redesigned website and a new 5-year strategic plan, which will become the central organizing principle for our efforts in the years ahead. It was great to see our new Vice President of Stakeholder Engagement and Customer Experience, Joanne Serena, in action this year. Obviously, just really building upon the strength of our stakeholder processes is going to be really important. And also, this year, we also ran into some really difficult issues that also stressed and strained these relationships, but ultimately, I think, demonstrated that we're sitting on a long-term platform of collaboration. I want to speak briefly to resource efficiency and wheel-through, because both of these issues did really surface issues, I think, that have been lurking below the surface and that we're now forced to deal with and want to be dealing with in the most constructive and collaborative way possible. So with respect to the resource efficiency issues, which are just so foundational to the trust underlying the energy imbalance market, we have taken a little bit of additional time to work through the remaining issues associated with the resource efficiency enhancements, and we'll be bringing a revised proposal to the joint general session of the Board of Governors and the EIM governing body in February for decision making. And with respect to wheel-throughs, we're also finalizing a proposal for next steps on that issue that will be brought forward in January to try to provide certainty around the wheel-through rules for the next 2 summers as utilities across the region conduct their resource planning and procurement. Both of those issues are so important, and it's just really critical for me to reemphasize our absolute commitment at the ISO to work constructively with our partners across the West on constructive win-win solutions to both of those issues. Amidst all of the other work undergoing throughout the course of the year on resource adequacy and transmission, we're just really blessed to see some real progress on both the energy imbalance market and EDAM fronts. Of course, one of the most important developments this year was back on August 20th, when both the ISO Board of Governors and the EIM governing body voted affirmatively to approve the new joint authority framework for EIM governance. I want again to thank Therese Hampton, the entire Governance Review Committee, the body of state regulators, all the folks that came together to make that a reality. I think it was just an absolutely crucial milestone in building greater collaboration, inclusiveness, and confidence in EIM governance, and I think demonstrate capacity and I think increased willingness of California parties to take meaningful steps forward on governance reform. And we're pleased yesterday to participate in the first joint general session, executive session of those 2 governing entities, and it was, I think, a very positive kickoff to that new framework. I also wanted to turn to EDAM, and this year was really a year where we brought people back to the table to see if we could reinitiate the level of interest and focus on the enhanced day-ahead market across the course of the summer. We had a self-selected group of the EIM entities working with the California load-serving entities team facilitated by our Chief Operating Officer, Mark Rothleader, who came together around a set of core design principles and bridged some of the conceptual, I think, gaps that existed in the previous effort on EDAM. Those core design principles were brought out into public domain on October 13th at our EDAM forum, where we had over 600 participants talking about the potential value of and creating a new renewed spirit of interest and momentum on the EDAM initiative. We followed that up on November 12th with a more sort of engaging stakeholder conversation where folks had a chance to really ask questions and engage on the core design principles. And we've now ratified that at the very start of the new year, we will be kicking off a full effort to take the design of EDAM to completion in 2022 with 3 really important stakeholder working groups, one on transmission, one on resource efficiency and forward showings, the third on greenhouse gas accounting. We're really excited to have stakeholders work with us in the first quarter of next year to develop a straw proposal for that effort. And amidst a very dynamic and competitive environment for market services, we are fully committed to positioning EDAM as the next major step in West-wide market integration. And we're also pleased, as we're taking that on, that the Governance Review Committee has reconvened its energy and its efforts to consider additional governance enhancements associated with the enhanced day-ahead market. So amidst all this, just a couple last things to note. Another banner year for the energy imbalance market, which of course is the foundation on which we intend to build the enhanced day-ahead market. Cumulative benefits now exceed $1.7 billion since the market's inception in 2014. This year, 2021, saw the largest annual growth in new EIM participants, including the Turlock Irrigation District and Bank Phase 2, which is comprised of the Modesto Irrigation District, the City of Redding, the City of Roseville, and the Wapa Sierra Nevada region. We also onboarded fabulous new partners in the LADWP, Public Service of New Mexico, and Northwestern Energy. And then, of course, in September, we had two wonderful new additions with WAPA Desert Southwest signing an implementation agreement for 2023 and BPA finalizing its decision to go live in 2022. And personally, I could not be more pleased or proud to have these new partners. As I also mentioned in my CEO report, I had the great pleasure this year of representing the ISO at the COP26 meeting, discussing our exciting new work, Global Power System Transformation Consortium. And back here at home, we also continue to invest in improved prioritization and program management at the ISO, rolling out a new enterprise board and enterprise program management structure to help us streamline decision-making and foster improved prioritization and sequencing of our key initiatives, something I know is going to be really important as we create additional bandwidth for the EDAM initiative, and also address, I think, we also provide constantly rolling out a lot of activity for our stakeholders. We want to make sure that our customers and stakeholders are operating at a sustainable pace. And of course, finally, we've continued really to invest in our people and culture to make everything possible here. We rolled out a set of new cultural values and leadership behaviors this year, and have also included funding in our 22 budget for 26 additional FTE in key areas such as transmission planning, technology, customer service, compliance, and enterprise program management. Of course, all of this work has been conducted like everybody else amidst the global pandemic. We had been hoping to be able to return to the building in the middle of January. Unfortunately, a combination of events associated with the pandemic and supply chain issues have forced us to extend that out into the middle of March. So we're going to be keeping our heads down here as we turn into 2022. But it really has been an amazing year, and we've just been extremely appreciative of the support of our board, of the EIM governing body, of all of our partners across the West. And I just wanted to let you know how pleased and proud I am of all the people of the ISO who, at the end of the day, are responsible for producing these outstanding results. So thank you for your support. I wish everybody just a wonderful and restful holiday season. And a little bit of an emphasis on rest, because we're going to turn the quarter into 22, and it is going to be a big year, and we are ready to go on the enhanced day-ahead market and all our other initiatives. So thank you so much. Chair Galidova, I'll turn it back to you, and if there's any questions, that concludes my CEO report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Any questions for Elliot from the rest of the board? No. Well, thank you so much. And yes, no rest for the weary. We're going to hit 2022 running for sure. And thank you so much for your leadership, of course, on a global scale, with COP21 on a national scale, with the Secretary of Energy coming today, with senators to visit the ISO, with the international and national visibility, with all of the external stakeholders, and the success of EIM. I've actually been telling everybody that EIM has netted close to $1.8 billion. So I've upped the ante a little bit, and I'm sure we'll be reaching it very, very soon. And of course, looking forward to EDAM and continuing that relationship and deepening the collaboration throughout the West, deepening the relationships with all of the California stakeholders. It's greatly appreciated that you're working so well with all the sister agencies, the CEC, the PUC, ARB, the legislature, the governor's office. That's extremely important for all of us as we transition into the era of keeping the lights on with more intermittent renewables on the grid and making sure that we're operating a reliable grid while we decarbonize the fifth largest economy of the world, and we meet the demands of our policy, which is to reach 100% clean energy by 2045 and essentially decarbonize all of the sectors throughout California's economy. So very exciting. Very happy and proud to be on the board overseeing this highly technical, high-functioning organization that leads to such great success. And of course, the success with behind-the-meter technologies and battery integration, which is absolutely critical, as you mentioned. We have the largest concentration of batteries on the grid right now. We're leaders in that case, not just integrating renewables, but integrating behind-the-meter technologies to support the renewables. And the huge success, which should be recognized for this year, we achieved 94.4% renewable energy on the grid, granted for about a minute, but we should be able to move forward and reach 24/7, 365 days a year. Yes, and every hour of every single day, especially the net peak. And I want to recognize your leadership, Elliot. You did hit the ground running. You've been a terrific CEO under very difficult conditions, extraordinary conditions, actually, COVID, remote work, building a new team, and making sure that everybody's included and structuring a culture that is embracing and focused on the future. So I also wanted to thank the rest of the management team that have all come together and done a terrific job. Mark Rothleader, Roger Collington, Stacie Crowley, Ryan Segasio, that did a terrific job with the budget and refinanced the bonds and has kept us on track financially as well. Neil Miller, Khaled Abdul Rahman, Didi Subatki, and of course the addition of Anna McKenna, Joanne Serena, and not to forget Jody Zimatis that does such a terrific job with all of our human resources. Wanted to also mention the control room operators that are very important to our everyday operations and make sure that we do run a reliable grid, and their work is highly appreciated. And of course, the Department of Market Monitoring, which is overseen by the board and also is a world-class organization that also supports the EIM governing body and makes sure that they support the stakeholders throughout the West and keep us honest. So thank you, Eric Hildebrand, Amelia Blanky, and Ryan Kurolinsky for your leadership as well. Working with the board has been amazing. We have all stepped up, and it has been an honor for all of us to be a part of this board. And even though it's been difficult and we haven't had a chance to be together and in person, we've all stepped up and actually delivered as well. So Mary, Ash, Severin, Jen, thank you so much for all your hard work. As we continue into 2022, hopefully we'll be able to meet in person and be able to have more of a collaborative relationship face to face. We did run a reliable brief. We deepened our relationship with the Greater West. Regional collaboration is extremely important. And teeing up our next item with Anita Decker, who is the terrific chair of the EIM governing body, I did want to show my appreciation that it has been an effort, and the work of the GRC, the Governance Review Committee, that led to our joint authority and future joint meetings has been very tremendous, as you pointed out, Elliot, and it's been a pleasure to work with Anita and with everybody on the EIM governing body. Because now we've had our first joint authority meeting, we're going to be having more meetings and working more closely together as we focus on decarbonizing the grid, improving and refining EIM, launching the day-ahead EDAM energy imbalance market, and making sure that we continue the success that we've achieved so far. So working with John Prescott, Val Fong, Rob Coates-Yoker, and the newest member, Jennifer Gardner, to reach those goals has been very, very gratifying as well. So with that, I would like to welcome Chair Anita Decker, who's been wonderful to work with, and we look forward to your report.
Thank you. So good afternoon, Chair Galitova and governors. That was just a wonderful accolade to everybody that has worked really hard this past year under really trying circumstances, let alone the operational challenges and some staff challenges, the bigger challenges that we just don't get together. And to be able to work with the Board of Governors, even remotely, has just been a real accomplishment for us. And I thought the meeting yesterday went very well, and we're excited to do more of that. So I do want to recap our meeting of the Western Energy Imbalance Market that was held on December 15th. So in our general session, we had the chair of the Utah Public Service Commission and Body of State Regulators Chair, Chair Thad LeVar. He gave an update on the BOSSR activities. They will be submitting consensus comments on resource sufficiency as that call for comments comes back out. And they want to make sure that they are necessarily engaged in the EDAM efforts as well. And they are going to be holding some educational forums for the body of state regulators so that they can kind of come along as the EDAM continues to evolve. Their next meeting is January 14th. The governing body generally has one or two representatives that do attend the BOSSR meetings. So it gives us some insight into how they're thinking about these challenges as a regulatory group. Pam Sporberg with Portland General Electric and the chair of the Regional Issues Forum provided the new officers for the RIF, and they will be coming on in probably 2 to 3 months as they make a transition with a number of new sector leads. The RIF is going to hold their first in-person meeting, not associated with one of the Western Energy Imbalance Market meetings, which is what they historically have done, but they are going to have an in-person meeting on January 25th in Portland. And in that meeting, they're looking at doing some talking about greenhouse gas reductions and also doing some examples of different modeling things as they look towards EDAM and the resource sufficiency. Resource sufficiency has definitely been on everybody's mind. That's a huge issue across the West. And Anna McKenna provided us a really nice update about where they are in the resource sufficiency initiative, as she did yesterday in our joint meeting. The Department of Market Monitoring, Eric Hildebrand, he provided a very in-depth overview of the different metrics that he is using to kind of bring more light, more transparency, and more information to the stakeholders who are interested in this initiative. And he did a very good job with his slides and with the explanations. And I would say that stakeholders are very encouraged by the kind of information that he's providing. The governing body provided an update on the governing body market expert. We have that position open. It has been posted several times on the California Daily Market Update. And that position closes on January 28th. And if any of the governing body members Board of Governors, know of anyone that would be a good candidate from that independent market expert perspective, they can take a look at that posting, and we would be very pleased to have you forward that to anybody that you think might be a good representative for us. The reason it's open until the 28th is because given the holidays, we want to make sure that there's adequate time for individuals or firms to take a good look at what our needs are and to respond adequately. So it has been a whirlwind year. And again, the meeting yesterday, we felt went very, very well. We're looking forward to meeting again in a joint forum in February. And that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you so much, Anita. Happy holidays. Have a wonderful 2022.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I did miss one person and acknowledging one very important person when I was going through the names a little while ago, and that is Stacie Carpenter, who has been amazing in supporting the board and in everything that we do. And I just wanted to acknowledge all her efforts and everything that she has done to make sure that we receive the materials in a timely manner, and look forward to continuing to work with her in 2022 as well. Okay, moving to the item that we have on our agenda. Decision on interconnection contract management enhancements. Neil Miller.
Yes, it's Neil here. Thank you, Chair Galiteva, board members. First, before I turn the microphone over to Jason Foster, who I'd like to introduce as our lead queue management specialist that will walk us through the details of the decision item, I was just wanting to provide a bit of context. As Elliot indicated earlier, we do have a broader interconnection process enhancements stakeholder initiative underway. And in the normal course of business, we would normally address these contract management issues as part of those larger efforts. This year, we're in a position of the interconnection process enhancements initiative itself is looking at a much broader range of potential reforms than usual. And these contract management enhancements would be of value to our stakeholders as soon as we can get them implemented. So this year, we did pull these issues that are more narrowly focused out, and we're advancing them as a separate effort. They are very much detailed issues that would not normally get a lot of attention from most of our stakeholders, but for the stakeholders that are impacted, they matter a great deal. These details are embedded in our tariff, and as such, we do require a decision from the Board of Governors to move forward with the filings to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to make these changes to our tariffs. These enhancements are generally well supported. I should mention we're not actually aware of any opposition to these changes. They're seen as enhancements to our current processes. And I really do want to thank Jason and the team for doing such a good job of walking our stakeholders through these very detailed issues. So with that, by way of background, I'd like to turn it over to Jason to walk through the details. Jason?
Great. Thank you, Neil. Appreciate the introduction. Good afternoon, governors. Like Neil mentioned, we are here today to present and seek board approval for the Interconnection Contract Management Enhancements Initiative. There are 8 topics within the initiative, and we'll review those momentarily. The ISO did complete the stakeholder outreach process. We kicked off the initiative in June 2021 and published the final proposal on November 10th with the final stakeholder meeting on November 17th. The ISO is planning to file these updates with FERC in January 2022 and would expect a ruling in March 2022. Like Neil mentioned, the ISO did receive favorable support and comments throughout the stakeholder process, and the ISO was able to clarify and implement those comments and feedback. We do not expect any further comments or issues going forward. If we can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So diving into the topics, topic 1 is the implementation of the ISO as an Affected Systems Study Agreement. As we see more generation being developed, the ISO has identified a need to review potential impacts from projects being developed in our neighboring systems or balancing authorities. The ISO has piloted this study process on a number of projects and determined it is simply time to formalize this into our tariff. And therefore, management is proposing to introduce this new CAISO as an Affected Systems Study Agreement to provide a consistent mechanism to collect the study deposit and implement a study process to evaluate these neighboring generating facilities. Topic 2, on the topic of retaining interconnection service rights. Generating facilities currently have interconnection service rights as well as deliverability rights within their contract. And today, the ISO only defines specific deliverability retention rights and timelines. As such, management proposes to make the interconnection service rights coincident with the deliverability retention rights following a project's or generator's retirement shutdown of that facility. Topic 3 is the Repower study plan timeline adjustment. When a project requests to repower their generator, they're required to submit a technical data package with that request. Following the technical review of that data, the participating transmission owner and the ISO develop and tender a study plan to the interconnection customer. Due to the increasing complexity of that technical data, it generally takes longer than 10 days to review and validate the package. So therefore, management's proposing to implement a 30-day timeline to allow the ISO and participating transmission owner a bit more time to draft and tender that study plan. Item 4 is clarifying some repower language in the tariff. The ISO outlines a number of different processes, but specifically for this topic, the modification and repower study processes. And here, management is proposing to really simply make some clerical language changes to distinguish between those 2 processes. Important to note here that we're actually not changing policy, just updating the wording in the tariff to facilitate a clearer understanding between the processes. Topic 5, today, as part of the interconnection study process, prior to a project achieving commercial operation, projects that receive a deliverability allocation by electing to proceed without a power purchase agreement are prohibited from extending their commercial operation date. Given this, management is proposing to allow these projects that do execute a power purchase agreement to have an opportunity to extend or align their commercial operation date with that power purchase agreement. Item 6, project conversions to storage. The tariff today only allows a generator to convert a portion of their project to a storage generating resource. And given the procurement climate and environmental targets in California, a number of customers have reached out and requested that the ISO allow a full conversion to storage. And therefore, management agrees with those stakeholders and is proposing to provide an opportunity for projects and generators to convert their systems to 100% storage resource. Topic 7, currently there are inconsistencies between the older serial processes and the current cluster study process. And because there are only 6 serial projects that remain in the ISO queue, management is proposing to streamline the modification and restudy processes of these older serial projects and make them consistent with the current cluster study processes. And lastly, the generator study process agreement effective date. Projects proposing to be studied in the ISO's Q cluster study application window are required to submit an interconnection request along with an associated study agreement. And because some of these requests do not move on to the validation or study processes, and such that we want to ensure that we're reporting to FERC only those contracts that do in fact become effective, management is proposing to adjust the effective date of that study agreement from the date it's submitted to the date that it's deemed complete. If we can move on to the last slide. Great, thank you. So in closing, management recommends that the board approve the proposed interconnection contract management enhancements topics. Like I mentioned earlier, stakeholders supported the topics, and approval will result in improved contract and study processes. They'll improve transparency with stakeholders and help the ISO and California meet its policy goals. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason. Do we have public comment at this time?
And just a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon located at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand. All right, and I do not see any comments in the queue at this time.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the Board of Governors? I think we're ready for a motion. Roger?
Yeah, thank you. I just had that unmute button. Move that the ISO Board of Governors approves the proposed interconnection contract management enhancements as described in the memorandum dated December 9, 2021, and move that the ISO Board of Governors authorizes management to make all necessary and appropriate filings with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to implement the proposal, including any filings that implement the overarching initiative policy but contain discrete revisions to incorporate Commission guidance in any initial ruling on the proposed tariff amendment. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I think that was Mary, and second?
Second.
It was a close tie on that, I think. And let me take your vote.
Roger.
Governor Bagwat?
Aye.
I'm sorry?
I think you're biased. Aye.
Aye. Governor Borenstein?
Aye.
Governor Galetova?
Aye.
Governor Leslie?
Aye.
And Governor Shorey?
Aye.
Thank you, governors. And there's a reason I'm not an umpire. So go to the next item. Back to you, Chair Galetova.
Thank you so much. And next we have decision on upgrade of ISO settlement system. And for an overview, Mark Rothleader.
Yes. Actually, I'm going to hand this off to Didi Sabaki to introduce Heather.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Galetova and governors. Today, I'm here to provide a little bit of a background and introduction for our next topic, which is our California ISO settlement system. The settlement system is a suite of applications that we use to settle all the market application for all market participants in accordance with our tariff. This system is 12 years old, and as we are looking forward to our future needs based on our future strategic plan and direction, and as we have done our review and analysis, we are here to seek approval from the board for funding to upgrade the existing system as well as to replace the aging technology infrastructures. With that, I would like to introduce Heather Kelly, who is the Director of our Operations, Services, Compliance, and Analysis. Ms. Kelly is responsible for all aspects of market settlement from bid to bill. Ms. Kelly will be providing a more detailed presentations on this topic. So, Heather, Ms. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Didi, and good afternoon, governors. Just want to sound check so you can hear me, right?
We can hear you.
We hear you loud and clear, Heather.
Like Didi said, I'm the Director of Operations Services, and my group is responsible for ISO settlement. And I'm here for a decision on the budget for a new ISO settlement solution. Next slide. So our existing settlement system was implemented with the market redesign and technology upgrade, otherwise known as MRTU. So it is about 12 years old. And over the years, we've had to augment it with in-house software development in order to keep pace with new market products and new policies. So my settlement team members currently perform quite a bit of manual validation outside of our existing settlement system in order to complete our daily processing of settlements. And also this current system, scalability is limited when it comes to data processing. So both of those issues add risk to meeting our tariff-defined daily settlement timelines. Another issue to note is that some of the in-house software that we've built and developed limits the transparency of some settlement calculations for our market participants. And that is something that we really strive for, is to provide that transparency to market participants. So it is time for a new solution. Next slide. So a team of ISO employees has been evaluating new solutions, and we selected one. The new solution is going to add scalability to the processing of settlement data, which has increased quite a bit over the years due to more market participants and a bigger footprint. It will continue to perform all of the complex calculations that we have now, as well as some of the ones that we foresee with our future policies coming up. It is going to increase our internal settlement processes that we execute. And the solution will also address that transparency issue that I mentioned to make sure that all settlement calculations are visible to market participants. And of course, the new solution will adhere to ISO technology standards. Next slide. So the impact to our market participants is a key factor that we considered when choosing what to do with the new solution. We feel that this solution will be the least impactful to market participants, and we're going to work closely with them to minimize changes as much as we can. We'll get out to our market participants early, and we'll continue to work with them through the process, as we've done with other settlement initiatives. And our goal is to really try and not overburden them and roll this out systematically and with a lot of transparency. Next slide. So with that, I'm here to ask for your approval of $15.6 million in capital funds for a new solution for the ISO settlement system. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. He wants to say a few things, and then I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Heather. So just board, I want to remind you about how the budget works on this. This will be a supplemental capital project, supplemental to our annual capital program. When you hear the budget discussion in the next item, every year when we come to approve the overall revenue requirement, you approve a component of that for the annual capital project program. Next year, it's going to be $20 million. When we have an excessively large project like this, we'll treat it as a supplemental approval to be kind of handled on its own outside of the annual program. We did this with the few years back when we built the backup center in Lincoln, as well as the EMS upgrade that happened a couple of years ago. So this $15.6 million will be in addition to the annual capital program, and it will come out of the capital reserves. Therefore, no debt financing.
And what are our capital reserves? What do they look like?
Well, there's kind of two components. You have cash on the balance sheet, which is probably, by the end of the year, it's going to be $140 million. But then probably 25 to 30 million of that's already been committed to capital projects, just not spent. So the capital reserves are probably around $110 million.
Thanks.
Okay, I think next we have public comment.
Before we go on, Ryan, what is our annual contribution into the capital reserve typically?
So it varies. It depends upon that year's revenue requirement. We're seeking in 2022 that you'll hear about next. The contribution will be $30 million. So that kind of ebbs and flows, but most of the last 10 years, we've been able to collect a little bit more in the revenue requirement than we actually commit. So it's built up these reserves. Next year, we'll have 30 coming in, 20 going out as part of the annual plan, but then this 15.6 will come out. So we will be dipping into reserves next year.
Any other questions from the board?
Thank you.
We can move to public comment then.
All right, and once again, ladies and gentlemen, use the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen to enter the question queue, the public comment queue. All right, and I do not see any comments in the queue at this time.
Assuming there are no comments and seeing that there are none, Roger, are we ready for a motion?
Yes, we are.
Great.
Move that the ISO Board of Governors approves the capital budget project of $15.6 million for the ISO settlement system upgrade project as described in the memorandum dated December 9, 2021. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
There wasn't even a close call on that. First goes to Governor Shorey, and second?
I'll do the second then.
All right, thank you, Angelina. Governor Bhagwat, your vote.
Aye.
Governor Borenstein?
Aye.
Governor Glitzva?
Aye.
Governor Leslie?
Aye.
And Governor Shorey?
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you, governors. The motion passes, and back to you, Chair Glitzva.
Thank you, Roger. Moving on to the next item. Decision on year 2022 budget. Ryan Segasio.
Thank you, governors. I'll be brief. You just saw the draft budget a little over a month ago. We've made a couple of minor changes. We added an additional 3 headcount to what you saw in the draft. There was a few other, minor changes across some of the categories. The bottom line didn't change very much. I think it's about a $500,000 increase from what the draft showed. So with that, I'll just turn it over to April to walk you through a summary. Do we have April?
April, you're muted.
She's here.
And
April, we still don't hear you.
And April, it appears as if you're unmuted, so.
But we still don't hear her.
April, if your computer audio isn't working, feel free to switch to, I see you are on your phone audio, so make sure your personal device is unmuted.
Technology and the challenges of remote meetings.
Well, if you would like, Chair Glitzva, we could move to the next item, and then which should only take maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then we can move back to this one.
Okay, we can do that. That would be good.
Okay, why don't we do that? I think that would be the most efficient use, and hopefully April's technology issues will be resolved by then. Our next item is the annual election of the Board of Governors Chair and Vice Chair. And as you're aware, we do this every year, hence the name, annual, where
Roger, I want to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Sorry, Elliot.
I'm sorry, Roger. I was just hoping this is Elliot, and now that we're kind of shuffling agenda, I just wanted, before we moment, I wanted just to have a moment before we move to the election, just to thank Chair Glitzva for her service as board chair this year. It's just been a tremendous pleasure to just benefit from her vision and passion for our industry, her direction, and just an absolutely just a fundamental fan and supporter of the ISO's mission. And we just really, really deeply appreciate that. And also never afraid to let us know when we're steering off course. And so we appreciate that. And to Angelina, thank you so much for your service this year as our board chair. We've all appreciated it, and know we're fortunate to continue to benefit from your time going forward as a continuing member of the Board of Governors. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And it has been a pleasure. And we did start. I mean, yes, everyone, thank you. I just wanted to also have the context of, I've been at the ISO for quite a while together with Ash Bhagwat, and we were probably the members that have served here the longest and have seen the evolution of this role. And we always wanted it to be a rotation that is a regular rotation that allows the opportunity for everybody on the board to have a chance to be the chair and serve as a chair and lead the organization and the meetings, which is very valuable and very time consuming at times, but needs to be something we all share. And because we've done it before, we decided that this would be an annual rotation, and have the vice chair step in at the end of the year, elect another vice chair who'll be ready to step in the next year. And that kind of mirrors what the governing body is doing, what the BOSSer is doing, and what is considered best practices in governance across the board. So I'm very happy that the ISO is also aligning with this initiative and with this mission. And I'm sure that each and every one of us is a capable board chair, and each and every one of us is a capable contributor to the Board of Governors. And it truly is an honor to serve on the board of this great organization and support it and enthusiastically work towards the goals, which are the best path to get us in a most optimized fashion to a decarbonized economy for the 21st century. So thank you. And with that, I would like to pass the baton over.
Wait. Can we say a few more laudatory things about you, Angelina? I'd like to say something laudatory about you.
She's going to start. She's going to start blushing.
Okay.
No, but she can blush all she wants. I just want to thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
It really has been great to be here this past. It's been almost a little over a year, and it has been an honor and a tremendous pleasure to serve in this role and continue to serve on the board.
So can we say something nice about you, Angelina, that you took over in 2019, which was a really tough time to take over because it was, we had a lot of change going on. We were transitioning our CEO and our board chair, and we were headed into what we didn't know, COVID in 2020, and you are the perfect chair to have led this effort, because I think you brought a really nice warmth and understanding and vision to being chair, and I think it's served us really, really well, and I just want to thank you.
Well, thank you, and it was a pleasure to be the first woman chair. It was about time we had a woman chair at the ISO, and now we'll have many more. And it's wonderful to see that now women are the majority on the board, which is also a first. So it has been a very good period.
Hey, well, let me ask at this point if there is a nomination for the next chair as well as the next vice chair.
Well, I think, yes. Thank you, Roger. And I think the way that we have decided that this rotation will take place on an annual basis is to have the vice chair step in as chair, elect a vice chair that is expected to step in as chair next year. Right. So with that, knowing that we have a very capable vice chair that is able to step in and hit the ground running, and I've had the pleasure of serving with for so many years, I'd like to pass the baton on to Ash Bhagwat as chair for the next year.
I think we actually need to formally nominate.
Yeah.
So I will nominate Ash.
Okay.
I will second.
And I would like to nominate Mary Leslie to be the new vice chair.
And I will second that.
Excellent. With that, I will read a motion, which there's some blanks that were just filled in. Thank you. And we'll take a vote. Move that the ISO Board of Governors elects Governor Bhagwat to serve as chair of the ISO Board of Governors pursuant to Article 3, Section 4.3 of the ISO's bylaws, effective January 1, 2022 to December 31st, 2022. or until a successor is elected, which shall be as soon as practical thereafter. And move that the ISO Board of Governors elects Governor Leslie to serve as Vice Chair of the ISO Board of Governors, whose role will include substituting for the Chair when the Chair is unable to fulfill his duties, for example, due to conflicts, absence, or unforeseen reasons, effective January 1, 2022 to December 31st, 2022, or until a successor is elected, which shall be as soon as practical thereafter. May I have a moving party, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Angelina. And second?
Second.
Thank you, Governor Borenstein. And your vote, and yes, Ash, you do have to vote. And
I was wondering about that.
And you can't vote against yourself. That's just so. Your vote, please, Governor.
Aye.
Governor Borenstein.
Well, okay. Aye.
We twisted his arm. Governor Galitova.
Enthusiastic aye.
And Governor Leslie.
Aye.
Governor Shorey.
Aye.
Roger, I do want to say something for a sec. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this, and I appreciate the confidence you're showing in me, and I hope to live up to it. I want to add to everything that everyone said about Angelina. I want to note her absolutely essential role in liaisoning between the ISO and the broader region, including her participation in the GRC and her active involvement with everyone in the region. And I hope she will consent to continue in some of those roles, because I actually think there's enormous value in spreading responsibility among the board, especially because we bring a lot of different talents to the table. But I really, in addition to everything else, I really, really want to express my appreciation for Angelina's work with the greater region. It has been invaluable.
Absolutely concur. Thank you, Governor Bhagwat. And let me turn it over to Elliot for a few additional words. Elliot, are you there?
I'm here, and of course, I just wanted to welcome beginning next year Chair Bhagwat and Vice Chair Leslie Zink. We're super looking forward to your roles next year. It's going to be an eventful time again, and building on Angelina's legacy. I know both of you are going to do just a fabulous job. We're very pleased and looking forward to working with you in many different capacities. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, everyone. Congratulations.
Thank you. And shall we move back to item number 7, and hopefully April is available.
Well, she's available. Is she audible? Can we hear her?
Well, audible and available. Let me be a good lawyer and be clear on that.
April.
Can you guys?
Are you there?
Oh no.
Yeah, we hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Okay, well, back to our previous item, decision of the year 2022 budget and grid management charges. April Gordon.
All right, thank you guys, or I'm sorry, thank you Board of Governors. I'll take you through the 2022 GMC revenue requirements. Next slide, please. So the 2022 revenue requirement is seeing a $1 million increase over the 2021 revenue requirement. Now, given all of the movement that's happening within the different components of the revenue requirement, this is a notable success for the California ISO, because it's only coming in $1 million higher than last year. The big area that we're seeing a shift is in the O&M budget. And that's primarily due to the higher labor costs that we're seeing and the additional headcount. Now, the O&M budget increase is being offset by a larger than normal operating cost reserve adjustment, and that we'll go into more detail later on in the presentation. And we're also seeing additional EIM revenue helping to offset that cost, and then also the reduction in debt service. Next slide, please. The GMC revenue requirement is made up of 5 different components. The first 3 components are what we call our needs in order to operate and provide the service to our customers. The last 2 components are offsets to the revenue requirement. The first component and the largest component of the revenue requirement is our operations and maintenance budget, also known as our O&M budget. This is where we're seeing a substantial increase of about $9.9 million. Our debt service is coming in at 14.7. We're seeing a $2.2 million decrease in this component, and that's mainly due, or that is due to the refinancing that was completed earlier in 2021. Our cash funded capital, which is used to fund all of our projects, is coming in $2 million higher than 2021. And as mentioned in the previous presentation, we're going to use 20 million of that 30 million to fund the project, and then the remainder would go into the reserve. Now, the next two components are the offsets to the revenue requirement. The first being our other costs and revenues. Typically, we only have revenues in this category, and here we're seeing a $3.2 million increase in revenues, and that's primarily due to our new EIM entities coming on board. And then the last component is our operating cost reserve adjustment, where we're seeing an increase in the credit adjustment of $5.5 million. All told, our revenue requirement is coming in at $182.6 million. Now, this is a $500,000 change from what was presented earlier in the year. The additional amount is due to a new headcount being added, additional consultant budget being added, and subscription costs being added. Now we're requesting approval on the $182.6 million. And then when we take a look at our transmission volumes of 233.5 terawatt hours, we get a pro forma bundled rate of 78.2 cents per megawatt hour. The pro forma bundled cost is just a mechanism in which we can show what the total cost would be if you were participating in each of our GMCs, the system operations, the market services, and CRR services. Not one client or customer actually pays that per megawatt hour charge as itself. The next slide, please. Now I'll take you through the O&M budget next, which the O&M budget has 6 different components. The largest component is our salaries and benefits component. That component is looking at an $8.3 million increase over 2021's budget. As mentioned earlier, that's due to the normal merit increases due to the labor market pressures, and as well as additional headcount being added. Now, in this category, and new to this year, going into 2022, we are introducing a vacancy factor to help accommodate and manage the budget surplus we've seen year over year because of the number of vacancies that we hold. And we're also seeing a reduction in our benefit burden in this benefit burden rate in this category from 36% to 34.5%. The next component is going to be our occupancy costs and our equipment leases. Here we're seeing about a $100,000 decrease. The next component is our telecom, hardware, software, maintenance costs. And here we're seeing a $300,000 decrease from the 2021 budget. Now, that decrease is actually going to be an increase in our outsourced contracts. We're seeing a lot of our software licenses be converted to subscription costs. So what that means to us in our O&M budget is it's shifting categories. In our consultants and contract staff category, we're seeing an $800,000 increase. And that's more for the backfill and additional assistance in areas such as our generator interconnection projects and so forth. And then the last category is our training, travel, and other costs. Now here we're seeing a $600,000 increase, and that increase is primarily due to higher than anticipation insurance premiums, specifically in our cyber costs and with our professional liability costs. All told, that takes our O&M budget to $210.7 million, which is a $9.9 million increase over last year's. Next slide, please. Here I'll take you through the debt service. We're looking at a $2.2 million reduction from 2021's request. our 2022 request is $14.7 million. The refinancing that was completed earlier this year is going to save us approximately $30 million in principal and interest over the life of the bond between now and 2039. Of that 14.7, 11.7 million is for debt payments due to the bondholders, and the $3 million is being collected for required reserves. As of now, the outstanding principal is $174.4 million. And just to point out, the bonds are callable in February of 2031. Next slide, please. Now, our capital budget going into 2022, we're requesting $30 million as part of the revenue requirement, but we'll put 20 of that aside to cover the projects that'll be brought forth for review and consideration in 2022. That $20 million budget will be used to cover projects such as market and operational and technology enhancements, as well as some other capital projects. The reserves portion will be $10 million. As I mentioned earlier, that was that the reserves are being used to help stabilize the revenue requirement year over year, so we don't have any big spikes brought forth to the stakeholders. A list of the proposed projects is contained within the budget book, but something to keep in mind is that list is dynamic. It will change during the year based off of what's brought forth to the CMC for their consideration and approval. Next slide, please. Now, our other cost and revenue category, we're seeing a $3.2 million increase, and that's due to the new EIM entities coming on board in the spring of 2022. We're also seeing a slight increase in forecasting fees, and that is anticipated revenue brought on by the new EIM entities as well. We're seeing an offset between interest earnings and generator interconnection project fees. All other categories of revenue in this component are expected to remain flat. Next slide, please. Now, our operating cost reserve adjustment going into 2022 is going to be $19.1 million. And this is a fairly high operating cost reserve adjustment. The main component of what's driving that higher than normal operating cost reserve adjustment credit is really the effects of the pandemic. A lot of the items that we had budgeted for in 2020 that didn't get to see fruition, such as travel, training, even some vacancies, those budget surpluses are going back to the stakeholders in the form of this credit to lower next year's revenue requirement. Next slide, please. Now, with all of the ebbs and flows within the revenue requirement component.
April, can I interrupt you for just a minute? This is Severin.
Sure.
Sure. So the operating cost reserve adjustment is basically leftover money that we didn't spend from last year's budget, if I understand correctly. So we have an operation and maintenance budget of 209.8, and we are saying we're going to apply last year's leftover money of 19.2. And so we're taking that off the revenue.
That's correct. It helps reduce the revenue requirement.
Got it. Okay. And then my other question is, it's 19.2 on page 4 of the annual budget report, and it's 19.1 in the table. Or am I confused?
It should be 19.1. If it says 19.2 in the documents that were submitted, then that's our error. It is 19.1.
Okay, great.
And I'll confirm that before we post the final version.
Okay, great. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. And once again, going over the rate slide, with all of the changes, we're only seeing additional revenue requirement increase of about $1 million. However, because we're projecting lower volumes in some of these categories, the majority of the rates are actually going to see a reduction going into 2022. The next slide, please. Now, just going a quick walk back of where we've been in this process to where we are. We did bring the the budget topic to the stakeholders in July to gather their input and questions that they might have. Those the questions that were brought forth are posted out on the ISO website. Typical questions were around the projects that were planned for 2022, clarifying questions around revenue or the financial statements that were posted. No showstoppers were presented during that stakeholder meeting. We did an internal budget process between July and October, and then we posted the preliminary draft budget book on October 29th. And then we followed that up with a review with the Board of Governors. And then we did another stakeholder budget workshop in mid-November and gathered more feedback from them on what was posted in October. Once again, questions were around the project. We did receive a question around what would be the potential cost impact as a result of the joint partnership between the Board of Governors and the EIM governing body. And then we also received a question from PG&E asking us to elaborate more on the projects that we are presenting during the revenue requirement cycle, to which we will actually partner with the enterprise PMO to go ahead and work together to come up with a solution for that request. No other complaints or issues were brought forward by the stakeholders. Our general consensus was that they approved of it. And then we went through this last stage of the budgeting process in November through December. With your approval, we will go ahead and post the final version of the 2022 rates and GMC revenue requirement out on the ISO website and go into January 1 of 2022 with the new rates being used to charge out our services. Before I conclude my presentation, I do want to thank all of the ISO management and the budget coordinators for their collaboration in putting together this well-rounded revenue requirement. Without their assistance, this would have been a much harder, difficult task to complete. And with that, I conclude my presentation.
April. Thank you so much, April. Any questions for April from the board at this time?
Yeah, this is Ash Bhagwat. I have a clarification, or maybe I don't understand something. If you go one slide back to your slide 27, you're talking about having higher projected volumes. But then if you go back to slide 3, you're projecting lower volume.
Yes, so the terawatt hours is a, much like the pro forma bundled approach, the terawatt hours that are on slide 3 are taking all of the measured demand across all lines of services. And what we noticed when we were looking at this total aggregate volume was that it was out of sync from what we were actually projecting on the individual cost categories as part of the GMC. So by reducing it here, it more aligns with what is being presented as the projected rate volumes for the GMC categories in the slide 27.
Hey, Ash, and this is Ryan. Probably the simplest, difference there to explain is also the effects of COVID. When we look at this on this slide, this transmission volume, we tried to kind of look at the last 3 years without the effects of COVID to kind of smooth out that number, because it's just kind of this budget metric that April described. But when you look at the actual volumes that are going through our charge codes on which we set rates, those clearly, compared to last year to this year or to next year, that there is impacts of COVID, right? You had some shutdowns that lowered those volumes this year, but now that's being increased going into the next year. So that's probably the simplest way to explain kind of how those two numbers diverge a bit.
Okay, thanks.
And I want to apologize. The 19.2 number that I was referencing, I now see was the draft column, and the 19.1 is in the 2022 budget. So apparently things changed from the point. That's what that was. I wanted to make one other point about the GMC revenue requirement, which is listed as in millions of dollars on This is page 3 of the report, and I don't know where it is in the slides, and looks about flat from 2006 to 2021 in nominal terms. In real terms, it's dropped by about 35% if you adjust for inflation for over that period. So I think that's very impressive that CAISO is doing more with less on the revenue requirement.
Yeah, Severn, to that point, I was gonna ask a different question, that we have this additional $53 million from the additional services and activities and responsibilities we have. Yet I only really see, I know we're reinvesting lots of places, including updating our systems, Ryan, but with the new staff, more than justifying, I think, the $9.9 million in new staff, right? That this new revenue correlates back into investments we're making to build our own capacity, right?
Well, sure. And yeah, over that time that, Severn just, referenced, clearly our O&M costs have increased, right? There has been inflation in our O&M and headcount has increased over those years. But really there's 5 different components of the revenue requirement, and we've seen a great deal of growth in the other revenues. We've seen significant declines in debt service. I think back in like 2007, 2008, our debt service was like $80 million a year. So all of that has come down, which has allowed us to keep the bottom line very flat.
Well, thanks to your innovation, Brian, I think we have you to thank you for us. We have you to thank for that. The restructuring of our debt service and the reduction of it, which you initiated, right?
It was an easy decision.
Well, it was a good decision, and it showed a lot of, and may you have more ideas like that, right?
As a very fortunate CEO, I will echo that, and Ryan and his team do an amazing job. And Governor Bornstein, to your point, I also appreciate you highlighting that point. But it's as you've seen, it's part of a multifaceted strategy. And of course, the next year or two, our goal, in addition to the fiscal discipline, investing in people in our systems, is also to try to really, through EDAM, to open up a whole nother envelope of revenues and business opportunities for the organization. So, but yeah, Ryan's stewardship, April's work, just top notch. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any additional questions from the board? If none, we can open it up for public comment.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, just a reminder, if you wish to make a comment, please use the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen to enter the queue. All right, and I do not see any comments in the queue at this time.
Wow, wonderful. Everybody is on vacation already, or else we have such great items that nobody else has questions on them. Our last item is informational reports.
We need a motion.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
That's okay. It is Friday. That's where
it is Friday. Yes.
Move that the ISO Board of Governors approves the 2022 GMC Revenue Requirement Capital Project Budget and resulting rates as set forth in Attachment A to the memorandum dated December 9, 2021. Governors, may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Governor Bogwat is first. Second is Governor Angela Galitova. Sorry, Governor Galitova. And Governor Bogwat, your vote.
Aye.
Governor Borenstein.
Aye.
Governor Galitova.
Aye.
Governor Leslie.
You're on mute, Barry.
Give us a thumbs up.
I'm talking to myself. Aye.
Thank you. Governor Shorey.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you, governors. The motion passes. Back to you, Chair Galitova.
Thank you, Roger. And now moving to our last item, informational reports. Are there any questions for the list of informational reports that have been filed? Seeing none, we're going to move to executive session starting.
But Governor Galitova, before we do, we did have someone reach out that was going to give public comment, and so that should be on your list there. But so we should open it up for public comment on the informational reports.
All right, no problem. We do have a comment in the queue now.
Oh, great. Okay.
All right, commenter, your line is being unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hello, this is Eric Little from CalCCA, and as you recall, CalCCA had concerns about the manner of allocation of costs for RMR, and the ISO took it back to a stakeholder process and now has placed it in this segment for informational updates as recommending no changes. I'm very concerned about that. I don't know that it's the appropriate action to be taken, and in fact, I would encourage the board to reject that and look at it again. I still do believe that the costs that are incurred should be commensurate with the benefits that are received. And when you really consider RMRs could be potentially in excess of $19 million for 250 megawatts, and we've had some 250 megawatt RMRs. When you allocate that locally, you potentially charge that money to 40% of the customers, even though 100% of them benefit because of the system attributes associated with it. We are in a situation right now where the system is very much constrained, and a resource, whether it's needed for local or not, is very likely needed for system as well. The ISO's current system evaluates local first, and if it's seen as being needed for local, there is no evaluation to see whether or not it's needed for system, and then the cost allocation quite simply goes to local. The ISO did include a table as to the reason that they made those choices, but I'll note that that table is a simple ordering table. What is first best, second best, and third best? There is no comparison of how far apart those are. And as I mentioned, the one area in which the proposal that CalCCA had put forth was best was in the cost allocation, and the others it was second to third best depending. But there is no information in those second to third best as to how big of an issue that really is between them. And during that stakeholder process, there was discussion of ways to mitigate those differences anyhow. I do think that this is a significant issue. I do understand the view that we shouldn't be doing RMRs, and I agree with you. I would rather not do RMRs. But I do think they are here for a period of time until the system gets built out and we get things back on track to ensure that we have a sufficiently reliable system and a sufficient number of resources to have excess RA. I'll finalize by noting that while the board note does mention that it was very lightly attended for the stakeholder process, 2/3 of the attendees generally said that things should be changed rather than staying the status quo. So I do ask that your review of that and determine whether or not the appropriate decision has been made to maintain the status quo. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for your comments, and congratulations on your new role. Do we have a response from management on this?
Yes, I think Neil Miller.
Thank you, Roger. Yes, it's Neil here. I do think I need to respond to a few points. I first off want to preface by making the same comment I believe Eric did, that our focus is on getting the resources built in place so that we are not in the situation of calling for system reliability must-run units, extending OTC compliance dates, and so forth. This is not a good situation. This is something we need to get out of. And that means laser focus on getting new resources built with the appropriate transmission upgrades so that we can rely on those units. In looking at this particular situation, the question, and it's not just the question of costs, it's also the question of capacity credits associated with those costs. Local reliability must-run units, the cost is spread over the load-serving entities ultimately in the area that are where the customers are in that local transmission area, and the appropriate RA capacity credits that are used for local purposes are also allocated to them. System requirements are spread across the entire system, as are the credits. It is a complicated issue and a rare event of when you have both local and system requirements emerging in the same year. The way we've been handling this is always by considering the local requirements first, and that being the primary means to determine the need and allocate the cost. And in those rare times where there are also system requirements, we would look at system issues separately. That's not always the case. We also have intergenerational issues where generators are already serving local needs and have been identified as such. And when you get into the complexities of transitioning between different paradigms, we firmly believe that where we fell out on this was the right way to deal with, or I should say, the least worst way. There is no ideal solution, and other than building the resources and getting out of having system RMR. We did have people coming out on different sides of the issue. Southern California Edison firmly supported the existing approach. As you've heard from Eric Little, CalCCA disagreed strongly with the approach. Pacific Gas and Electric was seeking clarity and raised concerns with some of the details in our memo, but fundamentally, we're looking for clarity as opposed to pressing strongly for one vehicle over the other. So we did undertake this comprehensive review. We believe we've done a fair job of summarizing the overall issues. I would agree that not all of the issues in the table would be considered of equal weight. And in fact, some of the ones that tilt our thinking to the local designation, what we've been proposing to continue using, we would say actually do rely on some of those primary metrics. But at the end of the day, there are strong differences of opinion on this issue, and I just don't believe we'll be ultimately successful in trying to get everyone on the same page. So I think with that, we believe we've done a very exhaustive approach in reviewing the issues. And I wish there was a way to get consensus on this issue, but at the end of the day, I'm afraid I just don't see that happening. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of the specific details.
Can I just clarify? So my memory is that up until 2 or 3 years ago, RMR had not been used for system reliability. Is that correct?
That's correct. The first, the first system RMR designation we sought was in late 2020 for 2021, and that was the Midway Sunset Cogen. And then in 2021, we also moved forward with the Kingsburg Cogen designation.
Okay. And Eric, if Eric's on the line still, you're pointing out that the hybrid method is rated as best in this table. But I thought you were advocating actually system as primary, which is rated as third best. Is that right?
CalCCA had advocated for a hybrid methodology in response to concerns that was too complicated to do in terms of allocating RA benefits, suggested that a system as primary given the needs was potentially another solution to it. So you have either one or the other as being primary or something in between the two. I think that in between the two is the appropriate place to go. But if they're, again, all local is system. And so given that construct, I think if you're going to err on the side of one extreme or the other, at this point, the erring ought to be on the side of system, since it's needed for all of those. I'll note you asked about doing system RMRs. I believe 2 out of the last 3 have been for system needs. And the third one, I believe there was an identified local need, and there was, to my knowledge, no study done to say whether or not it would be needed for system, even if it wasn't needed for local.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're muted, Angelina.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do we have any additional comments from the board? Any additional public comments on the issue or any other informational report for that matter?
I do not see any additional comments in the public queue.
Would it be useful to have another update or have a meeting with CalCCA to further discuss this issue and see if any additional refinement can be achieved?
It's Neil here. This is one of these situations where we have the risk of as Eric said, an extremely complicated hybrid model that would take literally years to design and implement, being preferred by CalCCA, other stakeholders, Edison in particular, that was most vocal about strongly disagreeing with that approach. I'm honestly in one of these rare cases where I think we've been at an impasse on this issue. We have had separate discussions with CalCCA offline where we've been trying to see if there was some gap that we saw that we believed our thinking was in error. But at the end of the day, this is where we've fallen out. We have not been able to find an acceptable solution to close the gap between diametrically opposed positions. So if the board requests it, I will certainly go back and have another round of discussions with stakeholders on this issue. I'm not optimistic that anyone's moving from their views of what the right thing to do is for the system. But if you wish, we'll certainly take another look.
My perspective on this is there is no right answer here. I completely respect Eric's position, but I tend to think you guys have made the right call because it's not like there's any correct solution. It's a joint cost problem. We all know they're unsolvable. And I feel like this may not be the place for the organization to put in its bandwidth right now. My own views, personal, but.
I will say that I think and we've had this conversation several times this year, our goal is really to get rid of these darn things. So we spend a lot of time attempting to design a new fix that potentially would be a better fix for something that we really do want to have go away. So for that reason, I'm kind of where you are in saying I'm not sure how much, especially when I think about all of Neil's staff and the workload that they are trying to get through. I'm very sympathetic to the argument that's being made, and I suspect you could hear it. You could handle it either way, and I suspect Edison would make a persuasive case for why we shouldn't go this route. So I think it's important for us to hear our stakeholders. But from my perspective, this is probably an issue that I think probably the real consensus of the board is to tell the staff that we want to work very hard to get rid of these darn things as soon as we can.
Yeah, I would echo that, Jan. The RMR, I think, isn't something we want to fix. We see it as temporary, and something that we don't want to rely on in the future.
Right. So, Neil, I think what you're hearing from the board is basically that we want to be expending our efforts and focus on phasing out RMR as fast as possible, not entering into a very complex fix of a hybrid solution that's going to be at best very temporary. And let's move forward to the next phase as soon as possible. Does that work?
Thank you. I appreciate the comments.
Great. Any additional comments from the board? Any additional comments from other stakeholders or the public?
And just a reminder that if you wish to make a comment, please use the raise hand icon located at the bottom of your screen. All right, I do not see anyone in the comment queue at this time.
Okay, well, that adjourns our last meeting for the year. Thank you very much. Our last public meeting for the year. Thank you very much, everybody. And the board will be going into executive session at 2:45. See you soon.
Great. Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you.